Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Soumojit Patro. I am an associate professor of sociology. I teach in Sidhu Kanu Birsa University of Purulia. It is in West Bengal. I'll discuss now media and movement. Mass media. What is mass media? Mass media is that media which can communicate with the mass. A message which is published, telecasted or broadcasted in mass media, published in mass media, reaches out to a large number of people, readers, audience readily through mass media. So the importance of mass media in organizing social movements, in building up sympathizers of social movement is enormous. Today, I will discuss media and movement and the importance of movement in contemporary globalized era. You all know that we have entered in a globalized world, and the importance of mass media has been increased. Importance of mass media has been enhanced, and at the same time, simultaneously, the role of mass media has been changed to a great extent. But before going to that part, I will start with what do we mean by social movement. Social movements are one of the principal major social forms which people give voices to their grievances, well-being, and start various types of collective actions such as protesting in the streets, dramatize those grievances and concerns and demand something to be done about them. A social movement must have a minimal level of social organization, a minimal coordination among the protesters. It can be partial, it can be loose, and on the other hand, it can be highly bureaucratized. I can give you some example. When you student, you move against some hike in the fees in your college, you start movement against the authority in a very loose manner. You do not have much organization, but compare your movement with that of the Maoist movement, which is very organized, bureaucratized, and very well coordinated. The nature of such actions to register protest varies from one country to another, but one thing is clear, that most of the social movements originate from a concern of the people over discrepancy between what is existing and what people want it to be, what is and what it should be. In other words, social movements marks people's dissatisfaction over the existing social situations. Media and movement is a very rich, prolific area of research and chiefly concerned with the complex relationship between modern social media and social movements. What media thinks matters in case of social movements to gather public opinion in favor of a particular social cause. People establish platforms. Social mass media can be treated as a platform. Social networking sites can be treated as platforms. Blogs can be treated as platforms. And these things, social networking sites, mass media, blogs, all these have come into analytical focus, including their relationship with the traditional news media. We are talking mainly about news media. We live in a very media saturated, in a very mediatized, I can say, society, and a growing scholarship suggests that there is a complex way in which media, politics, and social movements are interrelated to each other. As socio-political forces change, movements also seek media attention. Today, many protesters, many social movements starts with the media persons to come. When media persons come, movement starts. Why? Because in today's world, media is playing a very important role to distribute, to spread the news of a social movement. There is two things. One is selection bias, another one is descriptive bias. What is selection bias? Media tries to pick up those news, media tries to publish those news which do not contradict their own interest. For example, in today's world, most of the media houses are owned by large industrial houses, by private entrepreneurs. And if a news goes against their interest, say for example, if a news goes against the neoliberal ideologies, the media will not publish that news. Why? Because they are selective, they are choosy in their own selection. This is one. Media do not publish all the news. What is happening? They are selective. They select one or two which matches their own interest, do not contradict their own profit-making motive, do not contradict their own ways of doing things, and do not contradict with their own ideologies. There is another one. It is called descriptive bias. That means even when movements are represented, the reporting is often done in such a way that neutralize or undermine movement agendas. That is, the news is distributed, news is read out, news is published in such a way, news is published in such a manner that the original cause, that the original arguments are undermined. It is published in different forms. In the current world, in the current global context, where media is largely private and dominated by a handful of big multinational companies, movements that challenge the dominant neoliberal economic models find little representational space. For example, new media such as web or mobile phones have been seen as promising new tools for fostering debates and discussions. This is especially true after documented heavy use of social media in the Arab revolutions, as known as also Occupy protest, which occurred across big cities in the world. Social networking sites are considered as powerful spaces Social networking sites are considered as powerful weapons that tries to build up counter-hegemonic discourses against the rulers. Some have been termed as, some has termed that these revolutions are Facebook revolutions, Twitter revolutions. Why? Why these revolutions? For example, the revolutions of Arab Spring, revolution rather known as Arab Spring. They are known as, they are termed by many as Twitter revolution. They are termed by many as Facebook revolutions. Why? Because a large number of people, they joined their hands with the protesters through Facebook. Their physical presence with those actions, collective actions, is not important, but they showed their solidarity with the cause of the protesters. The history of last 2 decades has many examples of movements which have used web to embolden activism. One of the earliest and perhaps most cited examples is that of the Zapatistas movement. Zapatistas movement occurred in Mexico in 1994, and a large number of peasants, they tried to protest against globalization. Contemporary social scientists, contemporary political scientists also investigate the promises and potentials of news media, often using the normative lens of Habermasian public sphere. Some believe that online mobilization cannot be seen divorced from the traditional news media. Now, what is public sphere? You all have heard the name of Jürgen Habermas. Jürgen Habermas can be termed as a critical theorist. He is a very prolific social thinker of contemporary world. He has coined the term public sphere. What is public sphere? Public sphere is a space, is a public space in which people can discuss things, people can argue, and people can give counter arguments against anything that affect the general public. For obvious reasons, the rise of printing press, for obvious reasons, the rise of the establishment of media houses has enabled people to discuss over things which affect them. When we study media, we can focus on three related aspects. Three related aspects, very interesting. We can study media production, that is, ways in which media is organized, their ideologies, their mode of operations, their ownership patterns, and second, what they are producing, the nature of the text, the nature of the content of the serial, the content of the news, and media consumption. Thirdly, media consumption. That is, how do people make sense of the news they listen? How do people make meanings out of the text they watch in a news item? So these things are very important. Firstly, the ways in which media is organized. Secondly, the things they produce, it can be called as text, and the manner in which the, the produced is consumed by the people. The new technologies of web, mobile phones and digital camera along with social networking sites have enabled activists to forge connections and alliances and to coordinate transnational protests and mobilize supporters, channelize and build public opinion against the ruling class, against any phenomenon and in favor of their own agendas. This has made the things easier to organize. Take for example, the example of Santal rebellion. You have all heard the name of Santal rebellion. In Santal rebellion or rebellion like that, thousands of lakhs of Santal tribal people joined their hands. How? There was no media as such. There was no telephone as such. There are no internet as such. But how did they organize such kind of large mass movements? They had their own traditional mechanisms, we suppose. They had their own mechanisms to forge connections among their fellow men. Today, we can do these things by using internets. Why? Because you can publish a message in the Facebook, you can publish a message in the Twitter, and this message can connect thousands of people, crores of people at a time, and they can show solidarity to your own movement. In this way, the intensity of many social movements, I will not say the intensity of all social movements, but the intensity of social movements are increasing rather. I will say the intensity is increasing. One criticism is definitely there because this media, I have said that media has selection bias. They pick those news which has market. They want media is a profitable house. You should understand that media houses are not welfare organizations. They calculate their profits. They calculate their markets. So they do not pick those newses. They are not interested to publish those newses which do not have much market. So there are people, there are sociologists, social scientists who think that media selection bias of the media also depends on the marketability of a news item. Now, what has happened? What has happened during the last few decades after I can say after 1990s or during 1990s. Today, we live in a globalized world. What is globalization? Globalization is the increased interactions, it is the increased networking of the nations. This global world has enabled us to have new kind of technologies which was not available a past few decades ago. So using these kind of technologies, we can now change our mode of operandi. And second thing is most important, that in today's world, a thing which is happening, an event which is happening far away from our place affects me, and there is no need to be present in America to protest against some sort of policies they are taking now. By living in a village near Kolkata, you can protest against any international to protest against anything which is in true sense international. This is the importance of, this is the significance of media in a globalized world. Now, I will tell you that there is a brand of Marxists who are called critical theorists. Basically, they are based in Frankfurt. It is known also as Frankfurt School. They are thinking that this kind of mass media, this kind of the news they are the news they are publishing, the popular culture they are popularizing, they have also their own agendas. The media often tries to divert the attention. This is the argument of the critical theorists, that media often tries to divert the attention of the people by popularizing popular cultures, etc. So, the role of media is not, or rather I will say the relationship between media and movement is not straightforward. It has many complexities, it has many turns, ups and downs. So, let us summarize once again. Today we have taught three things: movement, media and globalization. The role of media has been changed during the last few decades. So we are discussing the concept of globalization, and we are trying to look at the relationship between media and movement in a globalized era. What is media? We are talking about mass media. Mass media is a media which can reach out to mass. A news published in mass media can be reached out very readily to a large number of people. Secondly, we have taught social movement. What is social movement? Social movement is a protest against the existing situation. Social movement tries to bring desired social order. Social movement tries to change the existing abnormality in social life. This social movement has three components. One is a cause which irritates people, which compels people to protest against the cause. Second is a group of people who will protest. And third one is a minimum level of organization and a minimum level of support. These three things work together in case of any social movement. And media, particularly in today's media, you can imagine the role of media 50 years ago. You had to know about an incident just after the day in the morning when the newspaper came. But in today's world, you can know what is happening in real time, what is happening right now in different parts of our country, in different parts of our planet also. So, as you are exposed more to the world phenomenon, you are also empowered. We can say that today's media, today's technology has in one sense empowered the people. Though there are sociologists, critical theorists who say that these new technologies are enslaving people, but in one sense they are empowering also. Today you can show your solidarity, you can join hands with the protesters through just clicking a particular word, clicking a particular message to the protesters. So the entire role of media has been changed. So the entire operationalization of the mass movements, social movements in which a large number of people are associated has been changed. So in a mediatized world, we are living in a mediatized world. I have already said that there are selection biases, there are descriptive biases. Media tries to pick up those news more than which is compatible with their own ideologies, which is compatible with their profit-making motives, etc. There are descriptive biases. Media do not describe the news in black and white. What they think do, they put the news in such a manner which undermines the general cause, which undermines the arguments, which rather distorts sometimes the reality, which rather distorts what is happening, distorts the injustices, undermines the injustices, and tries to put the message, tries to serve the message to the masses in the manner in which they want it to be. So we should look at the media, we should look at the role of a media, keeping all these questions in mind. If you have more queries, please go to UGC ePathshala website.